Partners is a boutique consulting firm with a big reputation of helping companies improve their revenues and decrease their costs significantly. Vici Partners started in 2008 and has been shaking up the industry by dramatically growing earnings for their powerful clients. Over many years, Vici has been solving the language and tools of empowered change, creating a simpler and more productive way, effectively bringing management and employees together to accelerate change that can easily be measured in profitability. Their unique business model and very important mission solve tough problems, from transforming business models to coping with economic changes. When your supply chain is choking and you need to transform, but you don't know who to call, well, my next guest may be that person. You're going to call this guy, Alec Hudnut, the managing partner of Vici Partners. I want to welcome him to Spotlight Television. Alec, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Damon. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you. Such an important topic. It's such an interesting time in what's going on in the country financially and in the economy. I want to get into all of that. But I guess first, tell me a little bit about you and tell me a little bit about Vici Partners.
So Vici Partners is, as you said, a boutique consulting firm, and we focus on earnings growth. And our clients are as small as 50 million in revenue to greater than 50 billion in revenue. And our consulting approach is different than most consulting firms. We believe that the answer to improving profitability already lies inside the company. So imagine in your career, in your life, and for all the listeners as well, when you were at work and things were going wrong, or just doing your normal job every day, if you had been the owner of that business, or if the owner of the business had sat down with you and said, what are 2 or 3 things that we can do better here, differently here, you would have had an opinion. You would have had an idea on how to make things more streamlined for the customer or get rid of unexpected delays, etc. And those ideas, which often start as complaints from employees, can turn into initiatives that can improve the efficiency of the business or improve the revenue of the business. So our consulting philosophy at Vici Partners is the answer lies within. And the reason that it hasn't been implemented yet is that the complaint or the idea hasn't been sufficiently quantified, right? What's the benefit of doing this? And what are the barriers to getting it done? Who are the people inside of the organization who have been blocking this idea? And so we work on both quantifying the initiative and breaking down the blockers, and also then helping the company to implement the initiative that was sourced from within.
So let's talk a little bit about the companies you're working with. And to kind of your whole point there, who's deciding within the company that, hey, maybe it's time to reach out to somebody like you guys?
One category of customers are people who want to be profitable who are not. Most of our work, however, is with companies that are profitable, that want to grow revenue, but don't want to tap the equity markets or the debt markets to grow. So they work with us to improve their cash flows, and then they reinvest that in growth engines.
When you talk about profitability, and I think this may be the most important question we talk about in here, and you think about what's going on right now in the economy with companies. You have a possible recession looming. You have supply chain prices obviously still increasing, supply chain problems. I mean, everybody's familiar with what a supply chain is now, where before, I don't think if you asked 10 people, 2 of them would have known what the supply chain is. Now everyone's familiar with it. So you have recession, you have obviously inflation still running higher than obviously the Fed would like to see it. You've got money much more expensive, 500 basis points of federal interest rates raising in less than about 18, 19 months. To think about company and profitability, it is a very tough environment. So when you guys come in an environment like this, do you have the same approach? Do you have to change what you guys do? How do you look at profitability in this kind of environment?
Well, 3 to 4 years ago, in many industries, particularly tech, profitability wasn't important. It was about revenue growth at any price. And I remember talking with the CEO of a publicly traded tech company who I went to business school with a long time ago. And I said, we'd love to help you get profitable. And he said to me, we don't care about profits. We care about revenue growth. Well, today, 3 to 4 years later, it's all about profitability. Yeah. Because as you mentioned, Damon, It's more expensive to borrow debt. It's harder to tap the public markets. And therefore, the way to accumulate your cash reserves so that you can continue to grow is to be more profitable. And instead of being valued on a multiple of revenue, we're seeing now, especially in the tech sector and others, EBITDA multiples, EPS multiples now becoming more important. And that's the way it should be. I mean, people are in business to make money. If you're not making money, the business is subsidizing your customer. It's not yet a real business.
Right.
You got to be in the business of making money. And so at this particular point in time, with rising inflation, rising debt costs, harder to tap the equity markets, Vici is very busy because we focus on one thing only at Vici Partners, which is growing operating income at our clients.
So when you guys first go in, is there anything that you immediately look for to kind of give you maybe those red flags on how much you have to do? What are those first kind of either warning signs or first things that you go, wow, okay, we can really put some gasoline on this fire? What are those things you look for first?
We always look at sourcing and procurement. So what are they buying their goods and services for from their suppliers? Because we do a lot of work in sourcing and procurement, and we have a good database of what is the reasonable price to pay. So we always look at sourcing. Interestingly enough, in procurement and sourcing, while price is important, right? We want to make sure our clients aren't paying more than the market. What's more important is getting the client to redefine what they're sourcing.
Talk to me a little bit more about your competition in the space and what really is separating you from some of those other firms.
The big thing that's different about Vici versus them is we have an unleveraged consulting model, which is also the antithesis of the industry. So
explain what that means to somebody who's just hearing that for the first time.
So we have no junior people on our projects. There's no 28-year-old, top of the class Harvard Business School, young man on our projects.
Right.
Everybody is in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They've run companies. They've been executives in companies. They've owned companies. Those are the consultants that we bring to clients. And the reason that's important is to vastly oversimplify consulting. It's a formula. Q times B equals V. The quality of the idea times the buy-in for the idea equals the value you're going to generate for the idea in implementation. In our process, we do a 6-month sprint where we're identifying all the initiatives, getting buy-in for them, and then getting a green light and building implementation plans for them. Half our time is spent on the buy-in and the consensus building. And people like you and me who've been in the industry a long time, we can do it better because we've been in all of those difficult political situations where it's hard to get things done. So one big difference is that our model spends a lot of time on the buy-in and the consensus building, because without good buy-in, the idea won't get implemented, or it will get implemented at a substantially lower value than it could be. So that's one big difference. A second from the larger consulting firms is much of our compensation is derived from the cash flow that our clients actually generate from the initiatives that we co-created. And so we tie a lot of our compensation to, did you actually get the 100 million you thought you were going to get?
Right.
And please pay us when you do.
Right.
That's
so
a very
realized against unrealized in some ways.
That's a big difference between, here's the fancy blue book that's 200 pages long that tells you exactly what you have to do in your oil refinery. Is that ever going to get implemented? What we do is we're implementing 36 detailed initiatives that the oil refinery manager signed off on, the engineers signed off on, the guy in maintenance who has to implement it signed off on.
It's like skin in the game. What I'm hearing you say on a most simplistic level is everybody has to have skin in this game, whether it's like you said, everybody's skin in the game, top down, including you guys when you come in. Everybody has to be invested in the success, in that realized profit gain that we're providing, that value. It doesn't maximize itself unless everybody has skin in the game.
Yes, you hit it on the nail on the head. If people think of themselves as employees, companies don't work as well as they could. If employees think of themselves as owners, guess what? the company starts working a lot better.
So let's talk to companies out there, potential clients who are watching this today and saying, man, I wonder if that's us. We could probably, I would think the two things they think of is how is this going to work? What happens? How's that initial call work? How do we get this started? Can we afford it? Some of those basic questions that, those mid to smaller companies are thinking about. What advice can you give them a little bit about, what this first experience with you guys is like, how you work initially, and why they should contact you guys, go to the website, get that information? What can you say to them?
So go to our website, vichypartners.com, and then the way in which we initiate work with clients is we'll have a pretty good idea from our benchmarking of working in comparable companies or companies that have similar issues as to what the savings potential might be or the earnings growth potential might be. And so we'll sit down with the CEO or CFO and say, given everything we know, here's what we think would happen if we worked with you. Is that valuable enough for you? And is that valuable enough for us? Because we're in it together.
Right, skin in the game.
Yeah, and we charge a modest retainer because we want the clients to take us, we want some skin in the game up front, right? But most of our fee is earned when the cash is actually generated. And typically our clients are returning a material return, very fast payback, and a rapid growth to their earnings. So our buyers are usually the CEO or the owners of the company if it's a PE firm. And we can figure out pretty quickly whether we can help that business. And if we don't think we can help them, we'll let them know that as well.
Yeah.
So when we say yes, we're in a sense putting ourselves at risk. We're investing a team. There's cost associated with that.
Sure.
We have as I said earlier, very experienced people on our teams who are very expensive. So when we take on a project, we are making a big commitment to our clients.
Yeah.
And we're happy to do so if we think there's sufficient opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's been an important conversation, especially what's going on in the world, the business environment of today, like you said.
Right now, Damon, given the macroeconomic environments of increasing debt costs, inflation continuing, or at least probably not dropping too quickly, difficulty accessing equity markets, companies really do need to think about their profitability, because the more profitable they are, the more they can invest in growth. Because the other ways to invest in growth aren't as available as they were a year ago or so. And so right now, it's all about the profitability. And Vici Partners does just that. We help companies become more profitable, either to help them get out of a money-losing situation or to generate additional funds so they can invest in growth. And that's the one thing that we do. And right now, that is a very, very important activity for companies to be pursuing, whether you're the $50 million revenue small company of a PE portfolio or a $50 billion public company.
That's great stuff. It's been a great conversation. We've been speaking with Alec Hudnut, who is the managing partner of Vici Partners. You can find them online, www.vichypartners.com. Alec, thanks for being on Spotlight Television.
Damon, thank you very much. I enjoyed our conversation.
It's been a great one. And I want to thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time right here on Spotlight Television.